Mr. Edwards, good morning and a happy new year to you.
And a very happy new year to you too as well, Mark.
As you can see, I've switched the hats, so
yeah.
So I look marginally less stupid than I normally do. We
well,
always start in exactly the same way. So as tradition dictates, what are the scores on the doors for the past month, and then we'll quickly follow that because I know he's going to get back to work. We'll follow that with the outlook for Wales.
Right.
So scores on the doors first, Neil.
Yeah, you must excuse me. I've got lots of bits of paper here because obviously it's the end of year, end of quarter, and obviously December as well. So the scores on the doors for December, the overall contract awards that we found here at the Builders Conference was £4.4 billion. So it ended the year on a positive note as well. So we hit the 4 billion in each of the months, if not more, obviously through the year. So that gave us an aggregate total across 2021 of £75.84 billion. So yeah, not a bad year, but not as good, funny enough, as 2020, when we actually hit the heights of £84 billion worth of work.
Yeah, I was going to come on to that. We will discuss the year in greater depth in a second, but I mean, there was a time early in the previous year when we were talking about potentially hitting 90 billion.
Yes.
We fell short of we obviously fell short of that, but we also fell short of the 2020 total as well. And
yes.
I particularly given the 4 billion plus at the end of the year, I think I certainly came out of the year feeling fairly upbeat. It wasn't a bad year, all things considered.
No, I think we are all upbeat because of what we've gone through, and what we've all experienced over the last, well, it's now nearly 2 years, isn't it? And there's been some definite highs and some definite lows through that period. But yeah, I think at the moment we can say that the construction industry is looking pretty good for 2022.
Just before we get on to the actual top five for December, it's worth noting, I think, and you and I spoke just before we came on air, the 2020 figures were a little queered anyway, weren't they? Because the government had saved up some big announcements towards the back end of last year. I think £12 billion worth in 1 month. That was HS2 related, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. They kind of, if you can think back to last year in December, we were going through a very, very difficult time with COVID. And in point of fact, they were obviously they not cancelled Christmas, because Christmas can never be cancelled, but they decided to put a lockdown, obviously, through Christmas. So to sweeten that bitter pill, they very much came across with something like just over £12 billion worth of new HS2 contracts. Which was for the phase one part of it, and the phase 1A, not the actual extensions, obviously, which during the latter part of 2021, they decided to take a bit of a change of route on that and decided to actually go on the existing networks, upgrade the existing networks rather than produce a new 2A or 2.
So we're finally at the point that we normally start at. So who came out on top in December 2021?
Well, it was a joint venture. It's a company called CNIM. Now, they secured a large project, but they actually took it over. Do you remember Clugston's went bust or went into administration a few years ago? They had secured the new Lockstock Sustainable Energy Plant, which is called LSEP. So it's a £480 million facility, which is all the way up there in, where is it? I'm just looking for where the actual location of that plant is. Lockstock Sustainable, Griffiths Road, Lockstock, Graylham, which is obviously, I think, West Graylham. Do you know where Graylham is, Mark? I can't even remember. Oh, Cheshire.
Cheshire. Yeah.
Yes,
it's definitely upwards.
Yeah, definitely upwards. It's not far from Wales, actually, but it just actually pops into the wrong part of our our location form, shall we say. So, unfortunately, it doesn't fit into the Wales sector. But yeah, it's a £480 million project there. But it's a takeover project. And the joint venture is putting towards major packages. And one of the major packages has been picked up by, so we understand, John Sisk and Sidon Construction. So yeah, it's a huge project up there, obviously in Cheshire.
Just before you go on, who is the joint venture between? Do we know that?
No, it just says CNIM. So we don't know what the actual management company is at the top. I think it's, I can obviously come back to you on that and latter parts, but yeah, well, while I'm here, I'll have a look to see. I'll put it into the, this is live, obviously. They're actually based in Paris, France.
Ah,
Yeah, so it's a French company. Yeah, 35 Rue de Bassano, 75008, Paris, France.
very nice too.
Yeah, so it's obviously a French-based organisation that's going to be running the project as well. They're going to be the operator as well, it seems. So they're both client and main contractor. So they're doing out packages of significant works. And obviously,
Awesome.
as I said, John Sisk is going to be picking up one of those as well.
So number 2.
Number 2 on the list is BAM, and they picked up 3 projects in the month, totaling £302 million, largest of which was a £250 million project at Gateshead Quay, south bank of the River Tyne. It's a mixed-use development. It's an indoor arena, exhibition space, and obviously public realm around that neck of the woods. It was originally awarded to Sir Robert McAlpine, but we have now found out that that has changed, and live information here is that BAM will be doing that project. So we've actually, obviously amended everything in the process.
I think it's worth highlighting that just before we move on to number 3 is the fact that that is very much the way that the BCLive league table works. It is based on fact. It's not preferred bidder. It's not somebody's been tipped the wink that they've got the project. It's hard and fast. Here's the facts. And as you say, live information, it had gone one way, but it's actually gone another way, and you're the first with the news.
Yeah, there can be a lot of hearsay out there, and a lot of trying to put good news out there, but we only follow the facts here at Builders Conference, because that's obviously pretty important for people to make their decisions in other businesses as well, to chase the right leads rather than the wrong leads. So yeah, BAM have secured that one.
Number 3.
Number 3 on the list is Waits, and who did very well last month as well. Now, Waits have picked up 6 further projects in the month. The largest of which was a £160 million project for a Public Health England, which is in Harlow. It's their laboratory side of things here for Public Health England, and obviously very important at the moment with what we've got going on with COVID, etc. But yeah, it's a Offices Research and Development Laboratories, Class B1, and that's the initial. And this has got a little bit of a change to it as well. The initial pre-construction services, which were awarded to Kia, and they didn't actually proceed to be the main contractor. So we've now researched that, and it's going to be done by the actual main building works is going to be done by Waits.
I can never remember exactly how the expression goes, but there's many a slip twixt cup and lip, or something like that. It is often the case. You see a headline. I remember specifically things like the Google building in London. It was definitely going in one direction. No, it went the opposite direction. So it really does. It's very important to check the facts, isn't it?
Exactly right. Yeah, we've been there before, as you say, with the Google building and plenty of others. Yeah, it can change very, very quickly. And, when it preferred bidder, we've always said, me and you speaking together, preferred bidder does not mean that they are actually going to sign that contract at the end of the day. And that's pretty important. You've got to have that signed contract because, as you say, it can go away very, very quickly.
I think just to highlight this to everybody that's watching, if you haven't experienced the BCLive league table, one of the key users of those league tables are the subcontractors. So subcontractors will be watching that very, very closely, and you don't want to be spending your time tendering for a project with, in this instance, Robert McAlpine, when in actual fact BAM has got the nod. It really is. You need that information to make sure you're not wasting your own resources and chasing a wild goose, as they say.
Yeah, and producing a quotation can be of huge amounts of cost to a business, and if you're sort of like preparing all of that for one, and then all of a sudden it goes to somewhere else, you may miss the opportunity. And you've obviously that cost is straight on your overhead, and your costs go up, and therefore you become less competitive in the future.
Which I guess, I mean, there's obviously the PQQ argument on that as well. The fact that PQQs cost an inordinate amount of time and money and everything else. But also, I mean, it plays to the builders' confidence. You're constantly seeking efficiencies within the industry. Don't go chasing wild geese. Go straight to the horse's mouth. I'm mixing my metaphors, but you get the idea.
Exactly right. We're very fortunate here. The researchers that we've got are a fantastic team. They've got some fantastic contacts, and a lot of those are on the pre-construction side. And those contacts we've built up over many, many years, and they give us the real-time information. That's the whole point of it all. The real-time correct information.
So number 4.
Number 4 on the list is Hill Partnerships, who are produce many homes, etc. And the largest one of their projects that they picked up is a £95 million project, and that's in Cambridge. It's the Marley Phase 1, Cambridge. It's for 547 new homes. There are some other facilities to go with that, and I believe there's going to be also in part of the development a primary school and a market square, etc. But it's a £95 million project there in Cambridge. And finally, number 5 is Morgan Sindall. They've picked up the most number of projects this month. That's 18. And the largest one of theirs is for their homes division, Lovell Homes. It's a housing development consisting of 2, 3 and 4 bedrooms. And that's in Hopton. So that's up in the north. It's actually for their own, well, it's part of Norfolk and their own housing side of things. So there'll be obviously some 106s there as well, social housing as well. They've come up with 18 projects this year. Total number of projects this month was 321, whereas if you consider that to this November, that's 447. So we have dipped down. As I said, £4.4 billion worth of new orders. Last month it was 5 billion. And 214 companies secured work this month. So,
but when you're looking at the comparison between December and November, I mean, we lost 7 days, probably more, in December just to festivities and everything else, didn't we?
Absolutely, yeah. December is predominantly a very quieter month, and you will see now, and all the press releases are coming out in the last 24 hours or so. Companies will be giving that New Year boost. So there'll be January is normally a good month to see of contract awards, and I think if you've already seen on a number of the news portals, there are a significant number of projects that are being highlighted there that have been awarded to major contractors.
We'll get into the depth in just a second, but before he goes back to work, how is Wales looking? And for Gary Muirhead, how is Scotland looking?
Yes, I'm sorry I can't bring you exactly fantastic news about Wales. As I said, that project falls into the Cheshire part of things, but as a combined value, Wales was £71 million. So not particularly good. Scotland a bit better, 340 million. So that's not bad this month. That's actually pretty good. That's above average. And overall, as the UK, not one area actually passed the £1 billion mark. Not even London. London was only £770 million. Obviously, the northwest with the Gateshead side of things, that's 600 million. And the northern area, there's with the Cheshire project for the power station, energy power station, that's 540 million. So it's quite a broad section across the UK this month of where projects have actually been awarded.
I'll throw that on the screen. I'd like to think it isn't quite that bad, Ken, but it has been quite a long period without any major works, and with this moratorium on their roads network, which is obviously a key contributor to the industry, it doesn't look great at all. And given the fact that you're probably under different rules for COVID and everything else, it's a funny old time for Wales and other parts of the country as well.
Yeah, Digger driver may have to wander a little bit further into England, i.e. Northwich in Cheshire, obviously to go and work at the energy plant.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that struck me while you were talking there was the fact that you mentioned a couple of projects in the northwest and the northeast, and yet London still retained its number one position, I guess.
Yes, it always does. Recently, recently, I went back up. I went up to London, and when you actually look at the number of tower cranes, I always kind of sit there on the train as I come up from the south. Look at the number of tower cranes, and you think, "Wow, this is a busy area. This really is a busy area." And I don't think in the short term it's going to be stopping. To be honest with you.
In terms of sectors, obviously we've become very reliant on housing, but some of the biggest projects were non-housing, and that struck me when you mentioned weights. When you said weights were number 2 or number 3, I thought, oh, that's going to be a housing project. As it turns out, it wasn't. So, are
No,
we
that was
still
a
relying?
research. Yeah, are we still yes, we are. Going back to that, yes, £1.5 billion worth of work there in housing. But that research facility comes under education. So education has done very, very well this month. And obviously offices as well. And finally power and energy. So that's the obviously the energy from waste plant up in Cheshire. So yeah, it's once again spread out quite a lot. Warehouses and industrial units, once again, also there's quite a lot of investment there, and that's also going to be a good sector carrying on from now on, because as I say, the way we purchase our goods is less through the high street and more through distribution centres and hubs, the Amazon type elements.
I do find that interesting. I was watching a TV show the other day, and they were talking about medical research, and they refer to the Campbell Soup Index. And the
Oh,
Campbell Soup Index, apparently, when you start to see like a flu pandemic or a COVID pandemic, or anything where there is sort of mass illness, sales of soup, canned soup, go up, and that tends to be an early indicator that this isn't just a tiny part of the world. We're talking pandemic, and I always think that whenever you mention sort of the warehousing, that really is a key indicator of the way that the nation works now. As you said, Amazon and all these online retailers. And yet I ventured into my local town for the first time in weeks the other day, and the number of shop closures. I mean,
yeah.
some of them may just be late coming back from the Christmas break, but it looked pretty dire out there.
Yeah, it does. I visited the offices over in Sutton, actually, not far from you, and I walked up the high street there, and wow, it's even like the big stores have amalgamated. If you, this is obviously a big name there. Argos at the bottom of Sutton High Street has now shut down and gone into Sainsbury's, because they are part of the same, but they've reduced the amount of floor space that they've taken up because they can put it all under one roof.
So we've looked back at 2021 compared to 2022. I guess we now need to look at 2021 compared to 2022.
20. Yeah. Yes. Well, what so do you want to go? Yeah, last year was in 2020, shall we say? I'm going to go 2020. There was something like 255 sorry, in this year, in 221, I'll get me facts and figures all correct here. In 2021, there were 255 working days. Now, normally we see the likes of Kia Group picking up a project per day, which was actually happened in 2020. But last year they didn't. They got 224. Close, but no cigar there. And they actually finished third on the overall rolling year for the year. But the winners overall was Morgan Sindall. And they picked up something like £3.2 billion worth of work. Now, they are also involved in some of the joint ventures regarding HS2 as well, some of those projects, but that's singly under their own banner. They picked up 3.2 billion. Second on the list is a joint venture, Align, which is obviously doing a number of projects within the HS2 bracket, and they picked up 2.5 billion. Third were Kia, fourth were BAM, and fifth were Hill Partnerships, which is obviously, as I said to you about, they've this month as well. They picked up a number of housing projects. But yeah, so and Winvic was 7th. Now Winvic do a number of warehouse projects and industrial hub projects, etc. So they've really come up the list as well. So yeah, it's a diverse list at the top there. And there was 1,733 companies listed in 2021 on the BCLive list or league that actually secured work. And in 2020, there were 1,770. So it's slightly down from last year. But yeah, 1,733. And if any of the companies that are out there listening to this that believe that they should be on the list, just give us a call and say, well, I think we've picked up a job or we've secured this project, because it can be, the leagues aren't fixed forever. You know, we can go backwards as well as forwards. So it can actually make the information actually robust as possible.
One of the things I found interesting in that is, and we are always looking for trends and that kind of thing, the number of joint ventures that seem to be around at the moment. And I realise that major projects like HS2 and Hinkley Point will be driving some of that. But that does seem to be pretty much a flavour of the month. Is that just down to the sheer scale of some of these projects requiring multi-skill or you know, the magnitude of many companies?
Yes, these Hollywood projects, as they like to call them, definitely have to have a different skill set, and those skill sets may not be within a particular business. So therefore, a joint venture, a partnership is the way to go forward, really. And a lot of these businesses are set up as a single business, so they don't actually affect the other side, the major companies as well. So yeah, we do see a lot of those things, and especially on the HS2 side of things, they are so multi-skilled and multi-disciplined that you will see a number of businesses, and a lot of them are European based as well. So you get the expertise of some of the tunnel boring machine specialists from Europe, whether it be Italy or Austria or those sort of places, bringing those skills back over to the UK. And it's the right way, really. We really should be sort of like embracing the partnering side of things to make sure that we do these projects properly.
Just had a comment there from our friend Gary Muirhead about Balfour Beatty not mentioned. I mean, Balfour Beatty are normally either at the top or pretty damn close to it.
Yes, absolutely. I'm just looking down. They're quite a long way down this year as a rolling total. So maybe they picked up a lot of. They're in the 30s this year, and maybe and we do know some 4 or 5 years ago they were reorganising and restructuring their company because they were going through some difficult times, and maybe some of those effects are coming through now. I think last year they did pretty well, so they may have not taken on huge amounts and overstretched themselves, which may have been an issue 5 to 10 years ago. So maybe they are being very selective in the projects that they're actually winning and bidding for.
Absolutely. So given the fact that obviously I've just said we're looking for trends, given that we've got all the records for 2020 and all the records for 2021, what are we looking at for 2022, do you think?
I believe that the amount of work that's been going through over the last 2 years, 2020 and 2021, that's now still coming through the books, the order books of a lot of companies. I hesitate because the number of tenders that are currently out to tender is not what I would expect. And we don't know whether that's a trend because people are not in the office due to COVID reasons, that they've got COVID, because we're seeing on the news, aren't we, that something like over 1 million people are isolating through testing positive. I think this year it looks okay for the first 6 months, but I'm kind of a little bit doubtful for the latter 6 months. But what you will see, as we've spoken many times before about, is the fact that we then become closer to re-elections or elections. And so we've got to get that feel-good factor back again from the government, so they'll start to put a bit of work through that way. I am interested to see Let me have a quick look through this. Regarding private and public works, this year, we haven't got as many public works going through the books as we have private. Normally, we like to see sort of like a fair split of when it was the Labour government, it was very much publicly funded projects. We were sort of like 60-40. And I know when David Cameron originally got back in under a coalition, he wanted to step that into a 50-50 side of things. Well, we've very much gone the other way now, and we're now 70-30. So the private sector is supporting our economy, but that does mean that the fact that we need to look at these infrastructure projects that keep being told to us about by the government need to actually come online. And I know there's a number of frameworks, and I know that the 6 billion, wasn't it, £6 billion worth of other works that were coming through. They actually, rather, we've got to say what we are saying all these things, but we've actually got to do these things, you know. And I think probably towards the latter part of 2022, early part of 2023, that's when we're going to start to see those projects coming through. And it's very disappointing now that these 40 new hospitals that were originally highlighted in the government's manifesto back in, what was it, 2019, 2020? No, 2019, I think it was. Their description has slightly changed. They're not always going to be new hospitals. New may be a significant refurb. So we've been kind of looking for those new projects to come through, and they're not coming through. They're just going to be refurbs of the existing rather than putting a brand new hospital in place.
And it makes you wonder just how easy it will be to refurbish a hospital, given the fact that all of the walls are currently full up with COVID patients. Not going to be straightforward at all, is it?
No, and that's kind of where you kind of think to yourself, and you've been visiting, obviously, your mum in hospital, and I've been visiting my dad in hospital. And some of these hospitals that we do visit could do with a very good refurb, if not knocking down and starting again, because they've been built and designed in a different era where COVID wasn't about, and pandemics were thought about, but weren't there. Whereas we now need total isolation, being able to totally isolate particular wards to make sure COVID doesn't come out. So there needs to be a relook at the redesign of these hospitals. Plus, if they're going to be in the middle of a green field or whatever, we've got to look at parking and how we get there and the infrastructure to it as well.
Gary Muirhead has just raised a very good point. This is obviously a talking point from the back end of last year. Is the price hike on materials and fuel likely to impact 2022? I guess the easy answer is yes. And obviously, the fuel change come April is going to have a significant impact as well, isn't it?
To me, I think it's going to be a massive impact. And because a lot of those, if you secured a project in 2020 and 2021, probably it's on a fixed price basis, and to actually secure the work, you can't actually put the proposed increases that are coming through on those fuel costs. So somehow that's all got to be shaken out. And I hope we don't end up getting a lot of litigation going through the construction process, because all that will do is slow down projects and then cause this great big backlog of work.
Yeah, and it potentially runs even deeper than that, of course, doesn't it? I mean, if you take a big enough hit, we could see even more companies going out of business because they've had to swallow. I mean, what were we talking about? Cement, 30% increase.
Yeah,
prices up by a third. That's going to sting a lot of people, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and we're already seeing inflation. What is it now, 4 or 5%? And we've had the first increase from the Bank of England in the last, I don't know how many years. We've been very steady in interest rates over this period of time, and now we've seen the first little hike in that as well. So all those things, I really do keep my fingers crossed, don't provide an issue to the construction industry in the future.
But as it's the new year, as it's the first show of the new year, first 6 months, you're feeling fairly upbeat.
I am. We are, and I think that the time those longer days start to come through, I think we'll be having smiles on our faces. What we need to do is definitely mend the roof while the sun is shining. So if we need to invest in new machinery and people, then we should be thinking about that very much now, and to make sure that we're prepared for anything that's in the future.
It's funny you should say that, because one of the comments that went through earlier was I didn't get to see the Inside the Factory BBC show, which I think was a Greg Wallace production, but apparently JCB still booming, plenty of new equipment, which is, as a British company, always good to hear. It does feel very busy. I mean, speaking personally, I mean, my email didn't stop at all over the festive period. There was a constant flow of news. So as you say, as it stands at the moment, not too bad. It's what we have. But maybe second half of the year that these possibly a cause for concern.
Exactly, and we're always good exporters of that type of machinery through JCB as well. And obviously with a number of the zero targets for emissions, etc., also coming into effect, we've got to be looking at those things as well. That could be a new industry for us to look at as well. Is obviously was it 2025 when no new diesel or petrol engine cars are going to be produced. So there's going to have to be some investment in those side of things, and maybe road onside charging points and infrastructure of that side of things. That could be a new industry or a new sector to actually invest in.
You just reminded me of something that you mentioned earlier, the fact that we do tend to buy in some of our expertise from Europe. We mentioned a French-owned company, or a French-owned joint venture management company there. I wonder if there is a Neil Edwards equivalent in France or Germany or something like that, who sat there saying "damn English" coming in and stealing our business. We hear a lot of companies coming this way. I don't hear so much of us going that way. Am I just reading the wrong newspapers or something?
No, I don't think we do as much as we sometimes a little bit. I think technology-wise we do. I think that the IT side of things and things like that. But this is my opinion. I don't see much of the likes of BAM are international. They're actually Dutch, aren't they? But some of the very British-based businesses transferring their skills throughout Europe. We see the Spanish coming to us. They've done a lot on the obviously Crossrail. Dragados have done a lot under that joint venture. I don't know whether we go back the other way as well. I don't seem to see it. I think it's more of a European coming into the UK rather than UK going into Europe.
It's funny. I'm fairly sure I was still working on Contract Journal when Bouygues first made landfall in the UK, and I do remember, UK contractors. Oh, the French are coming. They're going to come over here and steal our work and steal our jobs. Bouygues are just part of the furniture now. They've just become part and parcel of the industry, haven't they?
Yeah, very much so. They took over a number of businesses and they did a multidisciplined as well. But yeah, they've come over and they've done exceedingly well. And I think we've got BAM over here, we've got Skanska over here. All those businesses have got a European based or leadership as well. So yeah, and we got some of the big fit out boys are American based. So or I've got a heavy involvement in America as well. So I think we are very our life as an island. We very much are diverse in who we work with and network here.
No, totally right. I think that will do us, Neil. I kind of half promised myself that these shows wouldn't go on for an hour in the future. Well, guess what?
6 minutes left.
6 minutes left. By the time I've done the sign off and gone through the comments, I'm sure we'll exceed that. But it's good to see you, Neil. Good to see. Good to see a good end to the year. Just to reiterate, £4.4 billion. The £4 billion is a benchmark. We lost a week down to the festivities. So all in all, a very good end to the year, and a good start to the new year, hopefully.
Yeah, and already I've just pinged it up on the machine here. We've already found over £500 million worth of new contract awards in January. So in 2 days.
In 2 days. Well, In that case, I look forward to seeing you in just under 30 days, when hopefully we're back in the 5, 6, 7 billion pound mark, and we can all start rubbing our hands together.
I keep my fingers crossed for us too.
Many thanks indeed, Neil. I shall speak to you very, very soon.
Okay, speak to you soon. Cheers.